Flight Dreams, a Mark Manning mystery, Book 1. Author, Michael Kraft. Publisher, Open Road Integrated Media, New York. Narrator, Eric Ost. Manning groans. He rolls over and squints at the clock radio, which now fairly bubbles with the strains of a bouncy tarantula. He imagines the plastic box prancing, Disney-style, on its stubby feet. The music is pleasant enough, especially after the rude awakening by Sturcom's nasal twang. Manning would like to lie in bed listening, easing gracefully into the day, but he can't afford to linger. It's Friday, and his calendar is crammed with extra deadlines for the weekend. He reminds himself, though, that the day will have its reward, Roxanne's party that night. "Good evening, sir," the doorman tells Manning, swinging the door to his side with a well-trained arm. "Whom did you wish to see?" "Miss Exner, please. My name is Manning." "Ah, the party. Miss Exner said you might be early. Do go on up. Just press 30. Stepping into an elevator and pressing the button, Manning wonders, am I that predictable? Why did she think I'd be anxious to get here? He realizes that he had, in fact, felt rushed. He was kept at the office till well after 6, and he had to go home to shower and change. It drizzled all day, and thunderstorms threatened the evening, so he planned to take a cab to Roxanne's apartment, even though it is only 10 or 12 blocks up the lake from his loft. There was a break in the rain, though, so he walked, taking it at a fast clip in order not to get wet. He barely made it. He is panting now, feeling less than shower fresh. Rising non-stop to the 30th floor, his ears begin to plug, clearing when he swallows. The elevator halts and deposits him into a short hall that leads to either of two doors, the only two condominiums on the floor. He steps to Roxanne's and raps once with the chromed knocker, alerted by the doorman. Roxanne has been waiting on the other side of the door, which opens the moment Manny knocks. "Mark!" she gushes with a delight more typical, prompted by someone unexpected. "So glad you could make it," she tells him, all but pulling him through the doorway while offering her cheek for his kiss. "I wouldn't miss one of your parties," he tells her. "Really?" she asks the question wryly, while closing the door, catching him in a half-truth. Manning has been here only once. She moved to these sleek quarters sometime after their fleeing, around the time of her promotion, and he has turned down several invitations since. Letting him off the hook, she tells him, "The important thing is that you're here now. Matter of fact, you're first to arrive. Vodka on the rocks?" "You're too good, Roxanne," he says with a sigh, needing a drink. Again surprised that she finds him so predictable. She ushers him from the apartment's entry hall into the sprawling living room. Its colors are dark and neutral, its lighting dim, its furnishing starkly modern. A bare wall of glass looks out upon a skyline aglow with a million sodium vapor lamps, like a golden rococo fantasy flickering through the distance. In the rain, soft, bouncy jazz party music has been playing, and the recording now ends. A man emerges from the kitchen to tend the music, wiping his hands on a dish towel. This must be Roxanne's house guest, her college friend. So Manning deduces that he could be no younger than 31, though he looks it. "How rude of me," Roxanne scolds herself. "First introductions, then drinks." The younger man strides toward them with a broad smile. He is undeniably handsome and exudes a self-confident charm. His dress is studied, though casual, with attention to every detail. Well-tailored beige slacks, a gray t-shirt, and a slate-collared cashmere cardigan with its sleeves shoved halfway up his forearms. The heels of his Italian loafers clack on the teak parquet as he approaches. His overall look and bearing are not what Manning expected of the artist friend. "Mark," says Roxanne, "this is Neil Waite, my friend from Phoenix. Neil, I'd like you to meet Mark Manning of the Journal. The renowned reporter," says Neil, extending his hand and shaking Manning's firmly. "It's a pleasure." "Thanks, Neil. The pleasure's mine. Reporter, yes. But renowned, I'm not so sure. Nonsense, Roxanne insists. You're far too modest. Your reporting of the Helena Carter case is utterly authoritative. I'll have to side with Roxanne, Neil adds. The Carter case isn't exactly front page news in Phoenix, but it does get reported there, and everything I've read has carried your byline. I'm impressed, Mark. What can I say, says Manning, acceding to the flattery. Ready to change the topic, he asks. How about you, Neil? What do you do? I'm an architect. I'm here for a couple of weeks working on a project with our firm's Chicago office. That happens from time to time, and Rox is always kind enough to put me up. In the den, alas, Roxanne interjects with a low chortle. Her suggestive tone strikes Manning as more inappropriate than amusing. He wants to hear more about Neil's work, but before he can ask, Roxanne continues. Now, Mark, how about that drink? Neil, can you take care of it in the kitchen? I need to finish dressing, and I'll put the CDs in order. I like to have the evening fully programmed. No kidding, says Neil under his breath. With a jerk of his head, he beckons Manning to follow him to the kitchen. It is a bright, spacious room, no mere apartment-style galley. Neil has taken charge of the duties here, and all seems ready. Trays of hors d'oeuvres are arranged on the counter. Something's in the oven, and the cocktail cart is freshly stocked, ready to roll. Neil offers. What can I get you? Oh, just vodka on the rocks. Nice clean drink, says Neil with a tone of approval. I'll join you. He plunks ice cubes into 2 squatty crystal glasses, then grabs a bottle of Japanese vodka, a brand unknown to Manning. He pours without measuring until the ice is just covered. Let me garnish this with something. I think you'll like it, says Neil as he picks up an orange. He deftly strips off a long sliver of peel, then twists it over both drinks. Dropping half of the peel into each, invisible droplets of citric oil fill the space with their fragrance. Neil hands one glass to Manny and lifts his own, saying, I've never known what to call this concoction, but I just had an inspiration. Henceforth, this is a Mark Manning. So a toast to its illustrious namesake. Cheers, Mark. Touched by the gesture, Manning says, I'm at a loss for words, and I'm the writer. Neil tells him softly, just drink it. And they touch glasses and share a smile, a gaze that lingers, suddenly blocking other senses, suspending reality for a long, long instant. A wave of breathlessness passes through Manning, like a roll of timpani that is felt but not heard. His jaw drops. Drink it, Neil repeats this time through a laugh. Manning blinks. He sits. As the icy alcohol assaults his tongue, the reality of the moment snaps back into focus. He pauses to taste what's in his mouth, swallows, and says, Neil, this is great. The orange gives it a whole new character. I thought you might be ready for something different. The curl of Neil's lip confirms the double entendre. Never can tell, Manning admits. Then, diffusing their innuendo, he asked, Who's coming tonight? Do you know? Rox said we'd be 10 or 12. There's someone she works with. She mentioned several writers, spouses. I imagine she invited someone I met here before, someone I'd rather forget. Blind date? Not exactly. Neil snorts a loud laugh and takes a swallow from his glass. What's going on in here? Calls Roxanne, her tone playfully accusing as she appears through the swinging doors. She has the music going again, more upbeat than before. Nothing, Rox, Neil tells her. Just swapping filthy stories. Man talk, you know? He winks at Manning. She lets the comment pass, not believing a word. Instead, she strikes a pose and asks, Well, what do you think? She has chosen a cream-colored suit of soft merino wool. Under the jacket, she wears a tight black sweater and a fine gold chain that hangs in a single loop, narrowing as it descends between her breasts. The only other jewelry is a similar gold chain looped many times around one wrist as a bracelet. Her hair flows over her shoulders, framing her head like a veil. Her feet are virtually bare, guiding a pair of thin, striped sandals with short, spiked heels that would never be worn on the street. Neil simply eyes her and nods his approval. Manning attempts, with only partial success, a wolf whistle. "You guys are impossible," she says, dismissing the fished-for compliments. In that instant, Manning recognizes that Roxanne, who is one of the most seductive women he has ever known, is at the same time the least flirtatious. She is unquestionably attractive, poised and worldly, yet she dampens her glamour with a wearied indifference to her own physicality. What, Manning wonders, does that signal? Confidence or insecurity? "Hey," says Manning, "here's an idea. Let me repay your hospitality and invite you two over to my loft. You've never seen it, Roxanne, and I've been there almost a year. How about dinner next Friday, a week from tonight?" "Great," says Neil. "I'll have to check my calendar," says Roxanne, hesitating. She pours herself a drink. "I think I'm clear. I'll let you know." The door knocker sounds from the other room. As Roxanne turns to leave the kitchen, she tells them, "Curtain going up, gents. Take charge of the booze, please. I'll meet and greet." As Manning and Neil refill their glasses and do some last-minute arranging of the cocktail cart, they hear voices raised in greeting. Manning swings the door open and follows Neil, who wheels the cart into the living room. Roxanne has escorted her guests to the window, where they marvel at the view. Lightning flares in the clouds beyond the horizon. Roxanne waves Manning and Neil forward to meet the new arrivals, a couple apparently married 60 or so, both comfortably overweight. He wears a nubby tweed jacket with leather buttons and elbow patches, a wrinkled white shirt, and a bulky knit necktie with a knot that is far too big for the day's fashion. The overall impression is decidedly academic, though the unpolished image is flawed by his dashing silver hair, professionally styled, swept back, blow-dried, and lacquered. The woman at his side wears a serviceable matronly suit, also tweed. Beneath the jacket is a brown turtleneck sweater with a collar that rises in many folds, mimicking the layers of her chin. From the ripples of the collar hangs an oversized primitive necklace composed of beads, feathers, and what appear to be painted bones. Her hair, once black, now dull gray, is braided and coiled atop her head in a style that befits the necklace. Manny vaguely recognizes the man. His crackly voice is familiar, too. Then Roxanne introduces the couple as Bud Sturcom, the author and radio commentator, and his wife, Clarice. The Sturcoms exchange handshakes with Manning and Neil, offering drinks. Neil is asked to pour straight bourbon for both. Still pumping Manning's hand, Bud Sturcom puts aside the opinions he expressed on the air earlier in the week, telling Manning, "Mighty fine job you fellas are doing with the Carter caper over at the Journal. You're one hell of a reporter, sir," Manning says. "Thanks, Bud. I'm glad to tell you how well acquainted I am with your books." He doesn't mention that he finds their underlying philosophy reprehensible. "And I hear your program all the time." He doesn't mention that he usually switches it off the moment he hears Sturcom's voice. Sturcom beams in response to the presumed flattery. "Perhaps, Mr. Manning," suggests Clarice Sturcom, "you could appear on my husband's program. I'm sure the public would be keen to hear your thoughts on the Carter case." "I'm sorry," says Manning, "but the public has already read everything I have to say about the case." "No, Mr. Manning, you misunderstand me," she persists. "I'm not talking about the facts you've reported. That's also dry and tedious. Many people would like to know how you feel about what's happened." I'm sorry," he repeats, "but that wouldn't be appropriate to my role at the Journal. My speculation as to Helena Carter's fate would do nothing to solve the mystery. I'm a reporter, Mrs. Sturcom, not a detective or a mystic. Thank you for your offer, but I must decline." "Now, Clarice," says Sturcom through a soothing chuckle, trying to unruffle his wife, who is visibly irritated by the lack of enthusiasm for her proposal. And then to Manny. I'm sure you know your business better than we do, but if you ever change your mind, he trails off suggestively. Mark, says Neil, bouncing to the rescue, can you give me a hand with something? Manny nods a temporary farewell to the Sturcombs and follows Neil to the kitchen. Thank you, he says as Neil begins garnishing a tray of appetizers. I was getting annoyed. He gives Neil's shoulder a squeeze that says, but I'm better now. God, they're awful. And did you catch that neck piece? Who are they? Manning sips his vodka and lets himself relax. Bud Sturcomb, he explains, is the most overrated and, I feel, misunderstood writer in the city. He doesn't bother to hush his words, for the music from the other room covers their conversation, and the rain now beats loudly against the big windows. He's written a half-dozen books and a couple of plays that have received respectable critical acclaim, and, for reasons that escape me, tremendous public success. He identifies himself with workers, union movements, the common man, that whole bit. In short, he's a knee-jerk egalitarian of the most senseless and rabid variety. Manning stops talking and drinks. He stares over his glass at Neil, who looks back at him. Manning's words have revealed opinions not often expressed, and he finds it unexpectedly important that this young man should grasp and share his thinking. Well, you handled yourself beautifully, says Neil. He hands Manning a tray of crudites and picks up a second platter, heaped with cheese, as they return to the living room with their bounty, the knocker wraps. Roxanne takes leave of the Sturcombs, crossing the room to fling open the door, revealing a short, middle-aged couple who stow their dripping umbrellas in a stand near the elevator. The man wears a business suit, proper but blah, and carries a bottle of wine with a ribbon around its neck. The woman beside him wears a simple evening dress of deep blue, embellished with a strand of pearls. She has clearly spent the afternoon with her hairdresser, as her meticulous coif is done up with a tiny velvet bow that matches her dress. She smiles eagerly, suggesting she does not spend as many evenings out of the house as she would like. Jerry, says Roxanne warmly. It is Jerry Klein, Chief Operating Officer of Carter Air, and his wife. Roxanne feels the onset of panic as she struggles to remember their wife's name. This lapse has plagued her before. As the Kleins cross the threshold, Jerry thrusts the bottle toward Roxanne, telling her, Oh, Roxy, it's such a pleasure to see you outside the office for a change. Jerry and I were thrilled to be invited to your party, Roxanne, says the wife with obvious sincerity, a twinkle in her eye. My God, what's that damned woman's name? Screams Roxanne's inner voice. She says calmly, It wouldn't be the same without you, my dear. The women lean toward each other, clasp hands, and peck cheeks. Mary's been talking about this party for a week, says Klein. Roxanne asked herself, Mary? Why the hell can't I remember a name like Mary? Jerry and Mary. What could be simpler? I hope the evening lives up to your expectations, Mary, says Roxanne, while leading the woman by the arm into the living room. Now, you two do meet our little crowd. Just as Roxanne completes the round of introductions, there's another knock at the door, requiring another round. These guests are a senior partner in Roxanne's law firm and his wife. The new arrivals know the Kleins well, and Manning speculates that they have been invited to keep Jerry and Mary company. Roxanne crosses the room to boost the volume of the music, asking over her shoulder if Neil could get drinks for the four newcomers. But you'll have to mix your own refills, she cautions them with a wink. The guests cluster near the window to chatter an awed commentary on the view, while Neil begins pouring their drinks. As he distributes the glasses, the law partner says, Tell me, Neil, just what is it that you do? Roxanne says you're involved with the arts. The arts? Asks Neil. That's stretching things a bit, Roxanne, he calls across the room. She looks over from the bookcases that house the sound system, where she shuffles CDs in search of her next sonic barrage. He asks her, What have you been telling these people? She breaks into a wide grin, then resumes her search. Neil explains to the circle of faces around him. Roxanne finds it fashionable to have artsy friends, but I'm no artist. At least I don't try to pass myself off as one. I'm an architect, and the purest aesthetic calling within my profession is residential work, and I do as much of it as I can. But the truth is, like most architects, I spend the bulk of my time on mundane, artless buildings. Anything from factories to shopping centers, because they're the projects that pay the bills. One by one, his listeners cast disappointed glances across the room toward Roxanne. The woman seemed especially deflated. Their image of Roxanne's exotic friend has been dashed. Manning, however, is not the least disappointed, crediting Neil for his practical attitude. He has a string of questions he would eagerly ask about Neil's work, but another rap at the door signals an abrupt end to the topic. Roxanne excuses herself and soon reappears with the next guest. In the sing-song tone of giving a cookie to a child, she announces, "Look who's here, Neil." At her side stands a young man, tall and thin, with long fingers and pointed features. His hair is cropped close to his scalp, bleached to nothing of a color. The bib of his white painter's overalls, perfectly clean, covers the front of a red silk shirt. He wears too much jewelry, a necklace not unlike Clarice Sturcom's, a bracelet not unlike Roxanne's. With a shrug of his shoulders, Neil asks the ladies, "You want a good artist?" Turning to the man in overalls, he says flatly, "Hello, Howard." "Neil, you look fabulous," says Howard, rushing across the room, necklace rattling. "I can't believe it's been a full year." He grabs one of Neil's hands with both of his own and leans forward, kissing him squarely on the lips. Mary Klein gasps. The others aren't sure how to react. Roxanne flashes a satisfied smile, then steps forward to help acquaint everyone, introducing the lanky arrival as Howard Q, a noted Chicago illustrator. "Q?" repeats Manning, making sure he heard the name correctly. "That's right," says Howard with a laugh that suggests he has asked the question continually. "In the art game, a gimmick goes a long way to help you stand out from the crowd, so I changed my name. It's official. Just Q." "I see. You need a drink, Howard," says Neil. "Rum and Coke, right?" "You're a dear to remember." Howard turns to the Sturcombs and dives into an animated conversation with Clarice, who displays an adventurous, cosmopolitan interest in the illustrator. Roxanne, feeling her liquor by now, searches for still more raucous music, as if to signal that the color of the party has arrived. Neil, passing Manning on his way to the kitchen for the cola, says, "Could you come here, Mark?" Arriving at the refrigerator, Neil says, "I'm sorry, Mark." The swift, careless manner in which he mixes Howard's drink reveals anger, not apparent in his voice. "There's no need to apologize," Manning assures him. "That guy is no reflection on you. There must be quite a few like that in the art game." "Howard is a reflection on me," Neil tells Manning, looking him in the eye. "I think his whole act is tasteless, and I would never carry on like that. But we've slept together once. He and I may seem like very different people, but we're both gay. Lots of folks can't handle that." The words have caught Manning off guard. "Neil," he begins cautiously, "I'm not sure why you're telling me this, and I don't know what you expect me to say. If you're afraid I'll think less of you because of Howard or because of your sex life, don't. This is a big town." Manning allows himself a little laugh. "And I've been around it a while. I hate to sound jaded, but I'm not easily shocked." Neil smiles with the confidence that a potential crisis has passed. "Thank you, Mark. I guess I'm not conditioned to presume open-mindedness in others." Then, dropping the serious tone, he asks, "I gave quite a performance, though, didn't I?" After a moment's reflection, they shared a loud laugh. Roxanne pokes her head through the door to tell them, "If you two could break up your private party, there are other guests who might enjoy your company." And she is gone, her testy tone suggesting that Neil and Manning have hit it off better than she planned. "Oops," said Neil. We'd better get back. Howard Q must be getting thirsty." He finishes mixing the drink and plops a wedge of lime into it. They rejoin the group in the living room where the babble has grown louder to compete with the music. Rising above it all are Howard Q's sporadic, shrill outbursts. Neil delivers the rum and coke, letting the glass hang from 2 fingers as if it held something rancid. Handing it over, he says, "I don't know how anyone over 12 can drink this craw rot. You're just too proper to be seen drinking something you like," counters Howard. "But thanks anyway, love." He purses his lips and blows Neil a kiss. The group is engrossed in a conversation dealing with the need for increased public funding of the arts. Because beauty belongs to everyone and artistic expression is an inalienable right. Clarice Sturcombe proposes a constitutional amendment to that effect. Her husband nods gravely, agreeing in principle. But he points out that mounting support for it among the labor bloc might be difficult. He hastens to add that the working man is not intrinsically insensitive to the arts, but has simply never had the opportunity to taste life's finer fruits. Manning listens quietly and lights a cigarette, annoyed. Neil eyes him with concern, detecting his distaste for the conversation. Howard Q greets Clarice Sturcombe's proposal with enthusiasm, pouting that lack of opportunity in the real arts has forced him to prostitute his talents and go commercial. Roxanne surveys the cross dynamics of the room and glows with the satisfaction of a contented hostess. "Let's talk about something else," Neil finally says, feigning boredom with the conversation. "Like what?" asks Howard, mildly indignant. "Well, how about the Carter case? After all, we've got an expert," says Neil, deferring to Manning. "What would you like to know?" Manning asks him. "Not that there's much to tell. I had another dead end on the phone this week." "I have a question, Mr. Manning," says Mary Klein, her timidity overcome by curiosity. "I read something last week about psychics being brought in to help on the case. That sounds terribly exciting. What have you learned from them?" "That wasn't my story, Mrs. Klein. It was in the Post. I think it's nonsense. I've dealt with many of these mystics, and I've yet to see evidence of any powers whatever." "Oh, evidence," says Howard with a smirk. "What's evidence?" "Mr. Q is quite right," Clarice Sturcombe butts in. "Things aren't always so cut and dried as we might like. Some things are simply beyond human comprehension and will forever remain so. There are forces. There are powers that cannot be subjugated to the evidence of our 5 feeble senses." "Really?" asks Manning. "Like what?" "Come now," she sniffs. "Surely you don't possess a complete understanding of the world around you? Does life hold no mysteries at all?" "Many indeed," he answers, "but I look upon any mystery as a question that man has simply not yet been able to answer. I do not think that the unknown should be revered as unknowable." "Do you mean to tell us, Mr. Manning, that you acknowledge no force in the universe beyond the perceptions of your own mind?" "Yeah, that is precisely what I'm telling you. To deliberately cloud, to negate the working of your mind, which is your ultimate weapon for survival, is both irrational and self-destructive. Submission to forces that display their power is only that, submission. And submission to imagined powers is worse yet. It is folly. What force are you speaking of, Mrs. Sturcombe? Is it God?" "Not exactly," she says warily, guessing the direction of his logic. "Some may wish to think of a spiritual power as God. It's a handy label, but no. I am simply referring to any manifestation of the unknown or the unknowable. Clairvoyance, death, dreams, and such." The conversation stops. The listeners have been engrossed in the volley of dialogue, and they now wag their heads incisively, waiting for someone to clinch the last word. No longer argumentative, but genuinely inquisitive, Manning says, "Mrs. Sturcombe, you mentioned dreams. Do you know anything about their interpretation?" "A bit." Her tone is guarded. "I had a dream last night," Manning continues. "Totally unlike any I've had before. It's been on my mind all day." Neil's gaze is fixed upon Manning's green eyes. He commands gently, Tell us about it. This may sound a little crazy, Manning says with an apologetic laugh, but I dreamed that I flew. I've often had such dreams, Clarice Sturcombe assures him. How awful, says Howard Q. I once had a dream like that myself, Neil says quietly. Not me, says Roxanne. It must be quite an experience. It certainly was, Manning tells the group. I've never paid much attention to my dreams, but this one was so different, so vivid. I wonder if it has a particular meaning. Dreams can often be interpreted in different ways, Clarice Sturcombe explains. It depends from which school of thought you derive your analysis. Dreams of flight are a classic example. Some people maintain that the flight represents exactly that. A flight or escape from something, a warning from your sleeping mind that you're in danger, or that you need to alter your life in some fundamental way. Others view flight dreams as a kind of psychological overflow valve, releasing the accumulated pressures of waking life through the rapture of self-propelled flight. And then there's Freud. Sex, the law partner interrupts, grinning. I suppose Freud would say that flight dreams signal sexual repression. He laughs, and the group chortles with him. Oh, that couldn't be Mark's problem, says Roxanne with a suggestive wink, laughing a low, convulsive sound. Manning recognizes the sound. Roxanne has been pounding her cocktails. He lights another cigarette, having unwittingly put himself on the couch. He shifts the course of the discussion. Mrs. Sturcombe, he asks, in your dreams, how do you actually go about flying? That is, do you fly like a bird, flapping your wings? She blinks, considering his question, and answers, well, yes, I wear a long white robe with flowing sleeves, something like a choir girl might wear. I step to the edge of a cliff and, without hesitation, spread my arms like wings and jump out over the canyon before me. I glide peacefully till I awaken. But then her tone turns condescending as she asks the group, how else would one fly if not like a bird? I tried that, says Manning deadpan. It didn't work. Right, says Neil, suddenly animated. In my dream, I didn't fly like a bird at all. It was more like Superman. I could leap and soar at will, and I'd be leaving out an important detail if I didn't mention that the dream was essentially erotic. Not to offend anyone, but it was the only wet dream I've had since puberty. Clarice Sturcombe eyes Neil with the affronted air of having been upstaged. Mary Klein blushes, but remains stoically composed. The law partner laughs gustily while muttering, I knew it! I just knew it! Roxanne tongues an ice cube from her empty glass, sucks it into her mouth, and cracks it between her molars. The group now turns to Manning for his reaction, since it was his own dream that triggered the discussion. He smiles awkwardly, searching for words. I have to say that Neil's experience sounds similar to my own. Good heavens, said Howard Q with a rumbling purr and a toss of his shoulder. I'll have to start paying more attention to my dreams. Sounds like you guys have been having a ball up there in the clouds. There is general laughter among the group, though Clarice Sturcombe skewers Howard with the betrayed glance of one who has lost an ally. A sharp knocking of the door silences the banter, but not the atonal wailing of Roxanne's progressive jazz, which blares through the apartment. She excuses herself and crosses the room to greet her next guest. There is a wobble to her gait. She opens the door. Her eyes meet the smiling features of a rotund, middle-aged man who is dressed like a character from a period French farce, complete with cape and walking stick. She's not certain if the attire is simply in poor taste, or if it is meant as a costume, a joke. Yes, she asks, suppressing a laugh. Miss Exner, I presume? I am Humphrey Hastings. Oh! It takes her a split second to connect the name with the Post and its shoddy reporting of the Carter case. Ushering the man through the door, she tells him, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you, but I must never have seen your picture. Ah, yes, he moans while removing his cape, with a flourish, picking a stray pet hair from his collar. Such is the nature of a writer's fame, to be known solely for his work, his words, his service to the reading public. Of course, Mr. Humphrey, she tells him, still flustered, taking his cape and folding it over the back of a nearby chair. Hey, hasty, Miss Exner. He corrects her with a smile, raising an index finger in mild admonishment. Oh, I beg your pardon, she asked, now totally addled. Hasty, he repeats. My name is Humphrey Hastings. I'm so terribly sorry, she effuses, grabbing his hand and patting it. She asks herself, why in hell did I invite him anyway? She leads him toward the windows, telling him, do come meet my other guests. The group turns to behold the new arrival. A saxophone screams from the bookshelves. Roxanne announces above the music, I'd like you all to meet Hasty Humphreys from the Post. Manning stifles a laugh. Neil gaps open mouth. Bud Sturcum roars at his old pal. Howdy, Hump! Hastings stands rigid and trembling while Roxanne makes an awkward attempt to undo her gaffe. A clarinet stutters wildly over her apologies. At last, a correct round of introductions has been made. Clarice Strickham latches onto Hastings, and they are instantly in sync, immersed in a dialogue assessing the social role of news writing. Neil leaves for the kitchen to mix Hastings a drink. Manning escapes with him. They arrive to find Roxanne down in a quick, stiff refill. She turns as they enter and, anticipating an attack, spits at them. All right, I'm sorry. It's your party, Manning tells her. Far be it from me to question your guest list. Christ, Rox, says Neil. How could you invite that fruitcake? Oh my God, he looks like a wine steward. He breaks into laughter. I've never seen him before, she's defensive. We've never met. Neil stops laughing. Then why'd you invite him? His voice carries a tone of indictment. To embarrass Mark. Why would I do that? She yells at them at herself, then takes a deep breath, regaining just enough composure to march out of the kitchen and join her other guests. Neil tells Manny, guess I'd better get Humpty Dumpty a drink. His hard features melt into a smirk as he mixes a sweet potion of syrupy red gloop and dresses it up with orange slices, cherries, a straw, and a little paper umbrella, and then he finds in the back of a drawer. Neil and Manny rejoin the crowd in the living room. The music convulses hysterically, while bursts of laughter punctuate the beat. Clarice Sturcum's head bombs with enthusiasm as she listens to Humphrey Hastings, who tells her, I was at a party last weekend with my sister, and we had a little chat with Nathan Kane. He agrees entirely. She responds, it's so refreshing. Neil interrupts her briefly as he hands Hastings the drink. My, how pretty, says Hastings, holding the glass before him, as if it contained a rare wine. Clarice Sturcum says to Manny, I was just remarking to your distinguished colleague, referring to Hastings with a courtly bow of her head, how refreshing it is to find a journalist with a true and proper sense of social mission. Hastings giggles modestly, his free hand fluttering to straighten a poofy red velvet bow tie. I'm not all that progressive, Clarice. I've yet to master those damned computers at the office. I still write my stories on an ancient newsroom Underwood. It's a bit banged up, but it gets the job done. Really? Manning asks him, amused. Every writer seems to have his quirks. I myself take notes with a fountain pen. I can't stand using a ballpoint. It's like writing with a nail. Even so, Clarice continues, a great many of the ills facing our woe-ridden masses would be brought quickly into perspective if more journalists could fathom, as our dear Mr. Hastings does, the vast potential of the role they play in our complex social fabric. I shudder to think, she says, forcing her torso to quiver while the bones of her necklace clatter menacingly. I shudder to think of the sorry situation that would face us all if reporters limited their practice to reporting. The music shrieks violently, then a stunning shard of lightning explodes just beyond the windows. Someone drops a glass. Mary Klein screams. The lights flicker. A momentary outage, sufficient to cause the CD player to mistrack, plunging the room into silence. As the partygoers exchange disoriented glances, Humphrey Hasty finishes his drink with a burst of suction noises from his straw. Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.